Welcome to the Democratic National Convention from Philadelphia. I'm Juan Williams, and this is FoxNews.com live streaming from the 2016 convention. We're joined right now by Rhode Island State Representative Regunberg. Mr. Regunberg played a key role Saturday in the Rules Committee as they deliberated how to handle opposition to the presence of superdelegates. Some people said the superdelegates, in fact, denied Bernie Sanders the nomination because they were so heavily committed to former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. Regunberg, thanks for joining us. You're a Bernie Sanders supporter, and at the Rules Committee meeting on Saturday, you introduced a proposal.
That's right. I am a member of the Rules Committee, and I introduced an amendment on behalf of 58 of my fellow Rules Committee members to eliminate superdelegates in all future presidential nominating contests. From our perspective, we need a Democratic Party whose internal structures and processes reflect our core values. I'm a Democrat because I believe in democracy. I believe in the promise of one person, one vote that so many of my fellow Democrats have struggled and bled for. And so that was what this conversation was about. We were not successful in passing that full elimination. So from my perspective, it's not a total victory, but I was very excited and proud that we were able to win a real partial victory.
Well, slow down. I think a lot of people on the FoxNews.com audience would be interested in knowing that there was a compromise. So in other words, the people who wanted to defend the superdelegate process that had so heavily tilted the table towards Hillary Clinton, in fact, did give ground.
That's exactly right. So what was just passed, just on the floor of the DNC today was a unity commission that is charged with looking into a number of different areas of the electoral process, but specifically the part that had the most teeth was the section on superdelegates, basically written right into the commission in its charter, was language requiring and guaranteeing the reduction of superdelegates by approximately 2/3, basically saying that in future cycles, 2/3 of superdelegates will actually be pledged according to how their states vote, and then 1/3 will continue to be acting unpledged.
So just to get a little deeper on this, so the superdelegates will still be there, but they will be constrained in terms of how they can vote. They'll have to respond to the vote that takes place in the primaries in their state.
Exactly. So it was, from my perspective, a significant step towards that principle of one person, one vote, and so we were excited to get it through.
By the way, in this primary caucus cycle that we've just been through, how would it have changed for Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton had the superdelegates been limited to supporting the people who won their states?
Well, I mean, the numbers would be, Sanders won a higher number of pledged delegates than super or unpledged delegates. And certainly some of the narrative might have shifted. From my perspective, though, this issue wasn't so much about Sanders or Clinton. It was looking forward to the future of our party and making sure that democracy will be the way that our structures go forward.
Now, in the past, a lot of the argument had been that, in fact, without superdelegates, the party loses control. Here you are as a member of the Rules Committee, a loyal Democrat. Do you feel that's a legitimate argument?
I said why I'm a Democrat. I'm also a Democrat because I believe in our party's voters. Democracy is the will of the people, and to say that we need a small group of elites, who know better to look out, I think that's fundamentally anti-democratic, and it's fundamentally against the values that are the reason that I'm a Democrat, that I ran in Rhode Island as a Democrat.
Now you have, according to the compromise, you're going to have 1/3 less superdelegates.
2/3 less.
2/3 less superdelegates. So you have 1/3 of the current superdelegate class remain in place. Who are the 2/3 that are going to be eliminated? Because superdelegates are often mayors, governors, members of Congress, elected officials, party officials. Who's getting tossed?
So the folks who will remain pledged are a couple specific classes. It's governors, members of Congress, senators, and former president, vice president. So that all the other remaining folks they're not tossed. They're still going to the convention.
They still are superdelegates, but they are constrained,
pledged based on how their state votes.
That's exactly right.
Versus unpledged.
Okay. You, as I said before, are a Bernie Sanders supporter in the primaries and caucuses. How are you feeling about Hillary Clinton going towards the general?
You know, what I've said in my home state and to my fellow Bernie Sanders supporters, Bernie laid out a vision. There was incredible support and energy around that vision, and we've made, I believe, huge progress in pulling the Democratic Party back towards its core principles of standing up for working families, standing up for families of color, standing up for a future that is not, you know, transcribed by catastrophic climate change. We've made huge progress. That progress is not going to end after November. We need to keep organizing, keep fighting for those values. But at the same time, we need to do everything in our power to keep the hateful, xenophobic, racist, and misogynistic campaign of Donald Trump as far away from the White House as possible.
You know, it's funny that you say this because Trump, in looking at the democratic process, said it was rigged, and rigged against Bernie Sanders by the superdelegates. But you've come in and you've agreed largely with Trump's argument.
I mean, I've agreed that we need a democratic structure and processes that reflect our core values.
Did you think it was rigged?
I think that the nomination played out as it did. It's tough to run against the establishment. It's
right.
Tough to run against plutocracy in general. According to the popular vote, Senator Sanders ultimately came up short. But the message that he sent, the way that this Democratic National Convention is already playing out, and the movement that we're going to continue after November are all very much owe a debt of gratitude to Senator Sanders' leadership, and I'm excited to keep up that fight.
In fact, there were so many changes in the platform that moved towards Sanders' direction. Compromise again made by Hillary Clinton.
It's the most progressive Democratic Party platform in history, and that's, again, it's a real significant achievement. Having said that, a platform is a platform, and my hope is that Secretary Clinton wins the White House, and then we're all going to keep fighting and keeping her feet to the fire and fighting for accountability in a Democratic Party that fights for the people over the interests of an elite and well-connected few.
Now, when you started this fight in the Rules Committee, what was the response from the people that you've described earlier as the elite, the establishment?
So my initial amendment to eliminate superdelegates completely was voted down. We did not have a majority on that, which is why, and we kept working, we kept negotiating, and it's why ultimately we were excited with the compromise, which I think took us as far as we could get given the numbers.
What was the counter argument?
The counter argument, there were a few. One of them is the one that you articulated, that we need the party to have a handle on the lever. There's an argument about pitting Democratic Party leaders against activists. I think that we pretty persuasively have debunked and responded to those arguments, and I think that played a big role of why we got such significant progress.
So you feel like it's been a win in terms of, again, the bottom line is a compromise that eliminates 2/3 of the superdelegates in terms of being able to vote as they please. Now, that 2/3 will have to reflect the will of voters in their states.
Exactly. You know, I'm a state legislator. I'm not used to getting total wins. That's not really how the legislative process works. And a 2/3 win for me is something to be proud of.
Aaron Regunberg is a Rhode Island state representative, a member of the Democratic Party's Rules Committee, and as you heard, just worked and succeeded to some extent through a compromise in ending the number of superdelegates who are free to vote as they wish and not necessarily reflect the will of Democratic Party voters in the caucuses and primaries. He can be reached at Twitter at Aaron Regunberg. Aaron Regunberg, thanks so much for joining us. We really appreciate you coming on here. We're FoxNews.com live streaming from the Democratic National Convention 2016.